Hey everybody, I'm Joey Seeley, owner of Emotion Engineering. On this episode, unfortunately, we're going to hurt some feelings. We are purist motorsport people by trade, at heart, passionate about it. Austin and I both, our careers started in professional motorsport. We have chosen to step aside and do the occasional race car, but we enjoy development, which you really can't do in racing so much anymore, at least at the professional level. We're in the process of finishing up an RWB build. It wasn't built by us as far as, not a build. The bodywork wasn't put on by us, naturally, but we were asked to turn it into a real performance car, which I've always wanted to do. There's still aspects about the car that don't work and don't serve a purpose. And for us, being that our background is in motorsport, it has to have a function. These are beautiful cars, they're expensive cars, and there's no sense in doing things that don't work and don't serve an actual purpose, like fenders that are too large, wheel offsets that are too aggressive, ride height that doesn't allow for suspension travel, straight pipes that actually turn a $100,000 engine into sounding like a broken lawnmower. So sorry about the hurt feelings, but we're going to show you this really, really awesome RWB build in the mechanical aspect of it. We built a 4-liter, 410 horsepower, naturally aspirated air-cooled engine. We re-geared the transmission with a limited slip. We got rid of all the suspension arms and did solid adjustable, spherical bearings. We changed the front uprights to the best upright that you can get, where it revises the geometry a little bit. We got rid of the power steering on the engine and did an electric over hydraulic power steering unit from the 996 and 997 Cup car. The list goes on, and we'll show you more as we walk you through the car. But it's a lot more of a purpose-built car. It actually surprised me. It was a challenge to get the suspension geometry correct with wheel clearance. Believe it or not, you can turn these wheels lock to lock with no rubbing. Having fender liners is very important. People don't realize that. You slam a car, you cut them up. Most people just ditch them. They serve a purpose, not only protecting the wire harnesses and any other vitals like oil lines and AC lines, but it also serves a purpose for aerodynamics. The spinning wheel creates positive pressure. When it's turbulent, because it's not following anything nice and smooth, it creates lift and drag. So getting rid of fender liners and just spray painting behind the wheel black isn't going to cut it for us. So we made fender liners for this car. We made extra floor extensions to fill in behind these giant rockers, because otherwise it was a giant air pocket. It was just going to create a lot of drag and a lot of lift. With 410 horsepower, it's still going to move. It is a wide brick, overly wide. So, speeds over 120 miles an hour, you're going to start to really feel that, the pull from the aero drag. But all in all, we think it's the most effective, real mechanical build of an RWB that we've ever seen. We could be wrong. Someone may have done something similar, but it's very rare. Most of them are leaking oil and smoking profusely past the rings. So we'll show you around, talk about it a little bit more later. This car, we do really appreciate the choice in color. It's very muted. It's very natural, unlike the pokey in the eye, ridiculous, acid green or something like that. This car was originally, we're not sure what color, because underneath it's two different colors. It's blue and it's yellow. So you'll see some of that because, again, we weren't here for a cosmetic restoration. We were here for mechanical upgrades. So we did what we could, and you'll see, and we'll point that out. But for starters, the most important thing is this tow hook works. That's actually bolted in properly, so not glued in. And we didn't do that. We did, however, find that it was loose and we had to tighten it up. We changed the wheels. They were an 18-inch wheel, but it really had a 17-inch center, which wasn't going to work with the big brake conversion. So we worked closely with the wheel manufacturer and got the proper offsets. Then, of course, like I said, all the suspension geometry, the adjustability, and the revised geometry of the uprights were really important to allow it to steer properly. You can see right from just the wheel fitment in the fender well, it's not quite right. This gap here is really tight. This is not. You can't add yet without more adjustability. You can't add more caster, which would move the wheel forward and sit evenly in the wheel well. You can see the 6-piston Brembo kit we have in there, which is, you want to be able to stop when you add this amount of horsepower. We did on this the best option for our tire sizes that we were satisfied with, because this is going to serve some track duty. But we went with the BF Goodrich G-Force Rival, which I've seen, a lot of the Resto Mod hot rod guys use it in the Optima Ultimate Street Car Challenge with a lot of success. So we chose it for this car. It looks proper, and it will perform proper. The rear offset looks really nice. A lot of people go lower, but we needed suspension travel. It needed to be functional. We opted to use our KW competition, the Motorsport dampers. It's a triple adjustable. We have a lot of success using these in track cars. My personal Project Nasty, and the replica of a 993 GT we just recently did is hauling ass out at Thermal Motorsport or Thermal Club. And it's really, really great. But that said, with these wheel offsets, my settings that we used in that 993, which looks like an RSR, very much is like an RSR or like a GT2, those settings did not work in this car at all. It had to be completely done just because this is a giant leverage arm. This wheel is essentially inside out from what we're used to. This would be the inner barrel. So you can imagine with all your arms way inboard, that's a huge leverage arm on the outside. Fun fact, the banana wing. This was from the 993 RSR. That's actually what I cut my teeth on. That was the first race car that I really ever worked on. It was the first car that I completely rebuilt in my early 20s. The banana wing, the purpose of the banana wing is the rules at the time didn't allow for the wing to extend beyond the bodywork. So Porsche had the smart idea of bending it for more surface area. However, it does create a lot of drag. But as you can see, it's about as wide as the original car was, actually more on the door panel. The fender's way outside of that. So it's kind of silly to me that it's a banana wing. It does have the look, but they could have gone a little bit bigger with it. On the back of the car, this is this looks like a big parachute. We did help by making fender liners, but we do need some air to pass through. This is the only vent that comes on the bodywork. So we chose to open up, just like Project Nasty, open up the bumper. We will still install the license plate, but that'll allow some of the heat from the exhaust and some of the air that's trapped in the fender well behind the bumper to release. And it shows off the titanium 991 GT2 RS muffler, which sounds amazing and is actually lighter than the 991 GT3 titanium muffler. So neat little touch there. Let's take a look at the engine. This is a piece of artwork. Like I said, we retained air conditioning, but we did take the power steering off, and the power steering is driven by the cam on bank 2. So that is gone and capped off. But this is a monster. So this is the only paint work we did because I can't remember if it was blue or yellow, but it just didn't match the car. So we did paint the engine compartment because we were putting this piece of artwork in the car. This was a collaboration engine, just like mine, with Roth Sport Racing, Jeff Gamroth, and Cornelius at Six Fix. We work basically exclusively with them on the air-cooled engines. It is built to the Roth Sport spec, but by Cornelius, because they have worked together in the past, and Jeff is very happy to work with Cornelius. We are very happy with the result because this is over 100 horsepower per liter. It's a 4-liter making 410 horsepower. It has individual throttles, making it really snappy. All the headwork was done, the cams, CNC porting. the list goes on and on. I'm not going to even tell all the secrets, but it now is powered and they were managed by Motec, just like my car. But it really does. This car is really big. It's 500 pounds heavier than Project Nasty, but it makes 50 more horsepower. So they might be neck and neck. Be fun to run them together, but I don't believe we're going to have the opportunity to do that. You can see the difference between my motor and this one, the filter being on the front side. That's because of the deck lid. The deck lid is flat, so we're able to put the filter in the front. On my car, it's on the back side. Basically, that's just turning the manifold around. You can see the individual throttles here. This one also has coil on plug, which is really, really nice and tidy. There isn't a huge performance gain on that, but again, it's tidy. You get rid of the dual distributor right here and opens this area up. We also did something a little different this time because of the deck lid shape, is we mounted the reservoirs for the rear dampers. You can see this is where we can adjust the pressure. This is low speed compression. This is high speed compression. The rebound is on the top of the shock. Same goes for the front. But really stoked, really happy about the power this thing makes. And it really makes a fantastic sound. Sound isn't just the muffler, it's the compression, it's the design of the engine, the cams, the individual throttle. So this really has a good bark. So the interior is pretty basic. It's really pretty stock, other than the steering wheel, the shifter, which actually we did put a short throw shifter in there with adjustable rods. We do it on every 964 and every 993. The other fun thing that we've done a lot, I did it in Nasty, and I've done it in a number of 997s, not 991s because there's plenty of room in those cars, but 997s, 996s, Ferraris, Aston Martins, lowering the seat as far as possible because a lot of these guys are pretty tall. This guy happens to be very tall. So we got rid of the seats that he had, which had a flexible back, which, believe it or not, that takes up a lot of space. It was a really wide seat. With this Profi SPG XL, it actually allows for the seat to go back further. And we cut the original mounts out of the car that the seat mounts to, and we lowered them, I believe, 1.5 inches. So the actual mount surface is 1.5 inches down, and now the seat can go back further as well. So it'll be a lot easier for our guy who's 6'4", and anyone else to drive. I mean, it still works for me. Sitting lower, kind of Super Cup style. That, and I look like a 12-year-old, just like in my car. But still has AC, like I said, which is really, really nice. It's really, even if you do a lot of track duty, but sitting at stoplights or whatever, it's nice to have a little bit of air conditioning, and it doesn't rob that much horsepower. So this is, for me, some of the cringeworthiness. We cleaned it up, really tidied it up, but here's the yellow portion of the car. So whether that's the original color or not, I don't know. Like I said, the bottom side of the car is blue. Even the engine compartment, I think, was blue. So it would have been nice to paint this, but that would have just made the project that much bigger. So you can see the camber plates from KW. Here's the canisters, again, mounted nice and tidy. We 3D print these canister mounts. Some of the billet canister mounts actually get tightened down so much that it distorts the housing, and there is a piston in there, and it'll actually freeze up the piston or have it work not quite linear. So we 3D printed them. We've used other soft ones. It's a nice upgrade. That is the electric over hydraulic power steering unit, which is really, really nice to get that off of the engine. I did it years ago on a Cayman, and it made 10 horsepower across the board on a 300 horsepower car. So who knows what it makes on a 400 horsepower car, getting the power steering not driven by the engine. And it redistributes some of the weight. The power steering pump is pretty heavy. It's on the engine. Now we've got this up in the nose of the car. All right, so I think that's enough of the talking for now. Anyways, let's take this outside, take it for a drive so you can hear it. It's hard to get the aspect of speed through video. Also, we're on public roads, but just to hear it growl will be nice for anybody. So let's go for a ride. One of the fun parts of this car is, or any car we do really, it's very important to me that they maintain their street drivability. You know, there's no temperamental throttle inputs, you know, at low RPM, you know, easy shifting through the gears, no crazy amounts of, there's no suspension noise, as you can hear, no clunking, no rattling, you know, and this is not a smooth road, not many smooth roads. But another somewhat important thing, very important to me and to us in general, is the wheel rubbing. You know, we can pop a U-turn and go full lock to lock with no rubbing. It's a shocker, I know. It doesn't have to be wild all the time. You can have wild on demand. Like that. I hope you notice the really great gear ratios. Our buddy Bill Rader builds some of the best gearboxes, both for street cars and the highest level of motorsport that we have in this country. And he really gets the gear charts right for me. We send him tire dimensions, horsepower, all that stuff to get the exact gear ratios that we want. What I'm really excited about also, I mean, I keep saying that, I'm excited about a lot. This car surprised me with what we were able to accomplish. The car felt very chunky, which for good reason, when we first got it. With the power, the gear ratios, and the chassis tuning, this car does feel nimble. I mean, it is a small car. Small in wheelbase, but this is actually wider than our old GT3R twin turbo that we use for Pikes Peak, because that I could get in my trailer. This wouldn't fit in my trailer, which is silly. This is a caricature. You know, this is for shock and awe. I call these cars cartoons, because it really is. And that's what it is for most people. They just want that, the shock and awe. Hey, look at me. And of course, the celebrity guest appearance from Nakai himself. This car really turns heads, not because, I mean, yes, because of what it looks like, but more people keep coming over looking at it a second time because of the lumpy cam, you know, and that was the same thing with Project Nasty. I used to get thumbs up and head nods from, you know, the big hot rod guys, which I thought was always fun. I mentioned in the shop that we had to change the damper settings from the base settings that we used in the 993 GT2 replica. You know, that wasn't just the dampers, it was also in geometry, obviously. We bump steered the car just the same, which is changing the static length of the control arms, but measuring it through its dynamic motion of what, you know, how the car will react under bumps. So we got the same result as we did with the other car, but the dampers really needed the change because of the leverage arm of the wheels. But we also had to change our toe settings significantly on the front, which we still might even fine-tune it a little bit more, because setting this up like we like to, you know, with the years of experience with these cars, it wasn't going to work. The steering wheel was ripping out of my hand, you know, tram lining, as they like to call it, but it was worse than just tram lining, you know, on ruts. It was every bump, it would, you know, the big 285 tire would rip the wheel out of your hand. So we got a little more civilized with the front toe settings, and a little bit easier to drive. I made mention while driving that the wheels are wide, but the body doesn't need to be quite as wide, and that there's room to go inboard. And here's proof. With the wheel to the shock body, I can fit my full hand in there. So you can go in, I don't know what that is, 2 or 3 inches. And at the rear, you can see the whole rotor is at the inner barrel. And you can take a look upward. I mean, that's a good 12 inches of room or something like that up there from the body to the wheel rim. So there's plenty of room. I know it's a style thing. But these cars are emulating the 993 RSR and the 993 GT2 race cars, just extra, but wanted to point out the functional aspect versus just the style points. All right, now we got the wheels off so you can see some of the good stuff. Really, all of the good stuff is hidden. But here's the Brembo 6-piston brakes. The KW competition 3-ways. We'll show you more on the underside of the uprights and control arms. But what we did here that most people do not do is fender liners. We made fender liners. The reinforcements or the rocker and bumper holders that they do are basically like straws. So we used a thicker gauge aluminum rod, but so the bodywork is held on better, but also serves as mounts for fender liners and the pseudo flat bottom for these rockers, which we'll show you later. But you can see the plastic fender liners fit pretty nicely, especially for something simple and handmade instead of going the route of Kevlar or carbon. That would have just been grossly expensive. This serves the purpose really, really well. Very proud of them. Then you can see the mesh screens that we did for the oil cooler outlet. But it also, you see, it takes and pushes it as far forward as possible so we don't rub, as we are so proud of. So along with the original oil cooler and oil cooler fan, we ran the piggyback setup across to the other side that maybe you can see. It's a secondary oil cooler, but also we retained the AC condenser in there. So quite a bit of custom fab work, but has to be functional. Has to be able to, this big motor needs to be able to run in high heat at full throttle for as long as possible. Like my car, it won't overheat ever. The oil temps stay very, very chill. I can only last about 35 minutes in the car on a hot day, flat out, and I tap out. My eyes are bloodshot and my arms are pumped. So usually it's multiple pieces, even from the factory. We decided to do the same thing, but also because the material we were using, that was the length that worked. So it ended up being perfect. So you can see the larger struts here. You can't see more of the struts beyond that because it's all covered up. But 4-piston Brembo in the rear, solid arms, the KW competition 3-ways. This is still open because you want some of that header heat to evacuate. We didn't need to completely close it in. Because really you see for aerodynamic purposes, the modern cars will cut away the fender flare really high, even if it's at the bumper height, so that positive pressure is evacuated. So we can't do it this way. We evacuate some of that positive pressure that way and vent it out through the existing vents and the extra vent we made in the rear. So a little bit better than what is original. But you really can see on the rack just how wide this is. The good stuff. This is a beautiful 4-liter, 410 horsepower air-cooled motor. It is the original motor with this car. Long tube headers, and then made intermediate pipes to the 991 GT2 RS center muffler in titanium, which I love the sound, but also the lightweight aspect and side exit where they belong. The GT3 center exit doesn't always fit with bodywork and a license plate, as we've discussed before. From here you can see some of the struts we made and some of that yellow bodywork, yellow and blue. we don't love, but it is what it is. The mechanical aspect of this car is what's so beautiful. These subframes are they're rubber mounted typically, but all of those have been pressed out and we put in solid mounts, just like the race cars. Solid links that are fully adjustable, which is really important to do the bump steer. I don't like using adjustable arms on the modern cars because most people don't know how to do a bump steer. So most people don't need it. And most people are not gonna outsmart Porsche. I can assure you of that. So in this case, we really needed to, and it really makes them fantastic. But you can see here, the fender liners, we needed to kind of take it a little bit further. It wasn't necessarily planned, but realized when we had this, it's a big gaping hole here down the rocker. It would have, at high speeds, it probably would have torn the fender liner off. So this is the bumper support that we made. It's 2 bars, which is what we're using for the mounts up above. But it doubled as more of the fender liner, which we did in aluminum and powder coated it. But you can follow all the way. We did not coat these because we don't need to, it's not seen. But that whole, that would have been closed off originally, even with the small rockers that Porsche does. The rocker is the floor itself. So that big gaping hole, this is gonna make it a lot more stable at high speeds. And it's going to protect more of the custom work we did and the RWB bodywork. So really important stuff. I'm glad we did it. It's going to make this car last a lot longer and perform a lot better. The stock arms were retained, the A arms in the front, but new ball joints and spherical inserts, which great for the deflection. But here you can see the uprights. Billet uprights from ERP that change the geometry as much as possible within the stock 993 window. There's other options from other companies, but believe it or not, a lot of them miss the mark. You can't tune them to be anything more than an autocross car because they're such a handful because they got the scrub radius wrong and some other terminology I'm going to not bore you with. But these are fantastic. That's the best that you can get in the aftermarket. So really happy with what Kerry has developed here. We always reference on builds like this, the engine, it's the heart of the build. We are a chassis tuning company, almost primarily, but the engine is so important. The fun fact with this 4-liter, 410 horsepower on pump gas motor is basically within 20 horsepower of the 3/8 slide valve 2-ring piston, RSR motor that was used back in the pro racing days. So smaller displacement motor, but higher revving and not built for longevity, quite as much longevity. And on race fuel, we're really close to the highest output that they could ever do, which was 430. People disagree, but my friends at Porsche Motorsport say they've never seen anything over 430. And that's what I remember too. So really close, pump gas, longevity. In a lot of ways, this whole car, mechanically is the same or better than the 993 RSR. They didn't have damper technology like this. They didn't necessarily have all these adjustments, for the control arms. The difference in the transmission, straight cut gears, we have synchros because it's a street car. And again, longevity is really important for this. But, in every way, we've bridged the gap between the RSR and the street car. This is just a bit wider. You see, I pointed out all the suspension, but even the sway bars, they're from the RS. They're not the stock sway bars. So mechanically, we changed everything. It came to us as a car built by Nakai in Japan during COVID. That's why a lot of people haven't seen this car because it didn't get blown up here in the US. But we've put maybe triple the effort and time and money into the mechanical aspect of this car. All right, well, that's basically a wrap. Could go on for days about something like this, but I don't want to bore you. You've seen it, you've heard it, you've gone along for a ride. It is an incredible car. Sorry if I hurt some feelings, but I just have to be honest. There's a place for everyone and every type of fan, passionate car lovers. It doesn't matter what you're into. but be honest as to who is the best and why, you know, and call a builder when they're a builder. That's not a build. Now it is, but it's pretty awesome, and it will turn some heads because that's what you're looking for. But really, a build is not slapping on fenders with lag screws and glue. A build is really improving the driving experience, and we've done that. And there's plenty of shops that have done it, you know, so we're not the only ones, but I would probably bet that this is one of the best ones out there and one of the fastest for sure. So there you have it.